Right, my name's Adrian Powell. I'm from Charging My Street. I'm the project officer, so working on the Innovate UK project that was mentioned earlier by Daniel. Over the period of time, we've had many surveys of what is the biggest limiting factor to people, in EV uptake. We're now, notwithstanding everything Matthew went for, there are the environmental concerns and the cost savings, but most people tend to answer infrastructure. That is a convenient and reliable place to charge. And much as we know with a petrol diesel vehicle, you'll be able to find somewhere to refuel. You want the same if you're thinking about converting to EV. However, your EV charging tends to not bit where you just stop for a short while at a petrol station, but it wants to be more convenient than that. And the majority of people want to be charging overnight, and overnight close to their home. And we have found that ideally people would like to have a charging capability within 5 minutes walk of their house. Above 5 minutes, people just aren't really engaging with what we want to do. So that's the type of place we're looking for. And now I just hope to take you through the sort of story, if you were to get in contact with us, what we're looking for, how we could work together, and what you could expect of us. So the question really is how we get from you sitting staring at a screen to being where the people are on the screen now. Actually, there's a little bit of frightening, isn't it, there? And certainly John's face mask is clashing with his shirt there. So let's go to this one. That's much better. So we have the added benefit of a Charge My Street director in the picture as well, and that is the Deputy Mayor of Barrow. So how do we get from sitting staring at this screen today to the happiness of having your charge points at your place of work, near where you live? Let's first look at, so what are the benefits of hosting a charge point? Well, it's a Charge My Street charge point is a community benefit. So I think we need to be upfront right from the start there, as we're not installing in the high, footfall is the wrong word, but high usage areas, but more in, when we're urban, we're talking about it, in dense housing. And when we're talking about rural installations, we're talking in places where the big commercial operators, the fossil fuel operators, wouldn't necessarily be interested. So we're providing, and you, by allowing us to install a charge point at your premises, you're providing that community benefit, and at the same time driving all the changes that Matthew just referred to in his presentation. What are the risks of becoming a host and having a charge point on your premises? Well, the obvious risk is it doesn't get used. And I would say it's very possible in the short term, we might end up with low usage of what are, valuable parking spaces. However, to a large extent, and this whole webinar was called, making the change, but the change has already been decided for us, because diesel and petrol, the new diesel and petrol vehicles will be phased out from 2035 at the moment. It looks like the government, and that's going to be government imposed. So it's not going to be an option. And we were just on a webinar last week when they were talking about fleet managers, and fleet managers who are looking at about a 3-year cycle on their sort of company fleets. By their third cycle from now, they're pretty much going to be left with very few options other than to convert their whole fleet to electric. And indeed, on the screen there, Accenture last year were predicting 1 million electric vehicles to hit UK roads by 2025. So how does hosting with us work? Well, it works on a basic level that we have a simple but relative watertight tenancy agreement with you to install and run a charge point at your premises, or your village hall, or whatever, however this takes, for a period of 10 years. And it may not be the same charge point, because technology will move on, but essentially the important bit, the electricity connection, and the groundworks and the hard stuff will have already been done. We'll be able to update the technology, but we have a lease agreement with you. We run it for 10 years. There are break clauses that you can take advantage of if you're dissatisfied or if there have been problems, or of course if ownership status changes. But that's basically how it works. There are two models of operation. Ideally, we would use your building supply electricity, and then quite simply, at the end of every month, we have a meter that tells us how much of your electricity we've used, and you can cross-reference that with any metering you have, and we pay you for all the electricity we've used. And as Daniel said in his presentation, the electricity we sell on to an EV that's plugged in has a markup on it, and that's how we pay for our running costs, basically. Now, if it's not suitable to use the building's electricity supply, we'll have to get a mains electricity connection, which is quite costly. So we'd like to avoid that. Now, I'm just going to digress for a quick moment. I always get asked this question: how long does it take to charge a car? And the answer really is it depends on the car. The crucial thing is it's the car that determines the rate of charge in kilowatts. Now, the chargers offer up to a certain amount of a certain rate of charge, but it's the car that determines this. Now, the car, when you are talking about an AC charger, which are not the more basic ones, but the much cheaper and easier ones, and the ones you replace in the community, the car has its own inverter, so it converts the AC to the DC on board at whichever rate it can, and then charges the battery. Now, the bigger ones you see at booths, for example, the instant Watson booths with the big things, they have the really heavy duty inverters within them, and then they convert, and so it goes into the car as DC, and it charges what we call rapid, so that would be 50 kilowatts or above. Now, they cost, in terms of electricity connection and equipment, we're talking about 10 times the cost. Not 10, it's about between 5 and 10 times the cost it takes to put in an AC charger. So Charge My Street, and because of the nature of what we're looking at, overnight charging, we don't need that 50 kilowatt rapid charge. We're looking at people who are going to leave their cars for a period of hours. So we own and install, as far as it allows, a double 22 kilowatt fast AC charge point. And just to illustrate here the charge rates, so on the left of the screen there, you have the, I believe, best-selling plug-in electric hybrid, which is the Mitsubishi Outlander. That can only charge at 3.7 kilowatt. Moving across, we've got the Nissan Leaf, favored by Daniel, and that charges at 7 kilowatt on an AC charge. There are quite a few ones coming onto the market this year in dribs and drabs that charge at 11 kilowatt, the Audi e-tron there. And then on the far right is the one that Matthew was referring to just now, the Zoe, which charges at 22 kilowatts on AC. So how do you go about having a charge point at your premises, your village hall, wherever you're thinking? First stop is the Charge My Street website, which I know looks a bit of a mess on here, but there it is at the top. So chargemystreet.co.uk, hit host, and it takes you to the hosting page. Choose where you are, Cumbria, Lancashire. We've also got National and County Durham in there because we do look at national options, and we also partner with County Durham in our project. And then you go through and you suggest your location. Then there are a number of questions which you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. Is it near housing that doesn't have off-street parking? We really want parking to be available overnight because that's when most people want to park. Connectivity, whether that be by phone signal or broadband, is very important because, all the technology requires us to have that connectivity. And anyway, a smart charging where you can time when the best charge to go into a car is going to happen in the future, then we must have that data connectivity. And at the bottom there, it says, does the site have access to three-phase power? Three-phase power, unfortunately, is not normal on houses in this country, but many sort of larger properties and village halls will have three-phase power, and that is quite important. Now, that will come through to myself or one of the other project officers. We'll do a quick digital desktop survey to see how appropriate the site looks. Hopefully it does, and then we will make a journey out to visit you. We will be accompanied by our partners, Bay Cameron Communications and their sister company Bay EV. So their electrical survey engineer will come with us. Now, who are Bay and why do we use them? The very simple answer to that is because they're very good at what they do. And, you know, if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't be using them. But they're also local, so they're based on the Bay, so they're based over in Morecambe, and we feel it's very much part of our ethos to keep things local and keep with local suppliers as far as we can. So we've come to your premises, and first thing we really look at is your master circuit board. And what we're looking for is that tick one on the left, which is a three-phase, beautifully installed and recently installed three-phase power supply. Unfortunately, the one on the right, that's a single phase and looks like it's at least 10 years old, and that won't be able to support, really, it certainly won't be able to support two 22 kilowatt chargers. It's possible we can fiddle with things to get a charge, but basically, if we get across there, then we have to go to Electricity Northwest, and we have a dedicated team there, and we ask them how much it's going to cost, and they come out with a plan that looks much like this, and they'll advise us where the best place in this is a car park in Dalton in Furness. They'll advise where the best place is and come up with a cost. Straight after that, we will always check land registry, because there are some times when people think they definitely own the bit where we want to put the charge point and the associated parking bays, but they don't. Luckily here at West Point House, which is what we're looking at the excerpt from land registry, it's clear, ownership is clear, makes things much easier for us. Now, if we're using your building supply, when it comes to install, then you'll get a very neat setup like this, which is our own, or Bay's bespoke designed master circuit board with the master switches above, and just on the bottom left, you can actually see the hub, the EO hub. EO are a hardware manufacturer, and that connects. Now, if we can't use your building supply and we're using the electricity from Electricity Northwest, then you'll also need on your site a feeder pillar. And you can see two examples on your screen there. And that houses that equipment, which ideally would be inside. Sometimes you need neither feeder pillar nor charge post when you can host stuff, host the electrical equipment inside and put the charge points on the wall. This is the Lancaster Boys and Girls Club. As you can see, the bays are marked out there. They're just around the side of the Boys and Girls Club. The two charge point sockets are mounted on the wall, and inside is all the switching gear that we looked at earlier. Sometimes you get a mixture of two where you can host stuff inside, but also this is Broughton Victory Hall in Broughton in Furness, where you can see it's mounted on a charge point outside the building. And it just depends. It's different for every location. Now, Broughton in Furness, Victory Hall, which we're looking at the picture of here, is also featured in one of the case studies, which you can find at that link there, chargemystreet.co.uk/host, and you'll see the links in the panel on the right to case studies. Now, there will be a little bit of digging to be done inevitably when we get there. This is West Point House. You see, it doesn't look too bad, and we try and keep it as tidy as possible. And as you can see, the picture on the right is just several days after all that digging has gone on, and it's already beginning to look like we hadn't been there at all. I mean, apart from the huge charge point. What makes Charge My Street different is that we don't just leave you with the charge point and that's it. We try and engage with the community to demonstrate they have an asset. So with flyering when allowed, we will let people know in advance that we're coming and installing. As the host, you will get an instruction, a flyer there, which will tell you just the little things that may go wrong. Sometimes, you know, for no reason or something to do with the grid, we'll get a little trip out and you can just go and reset the master switches. And then we'll also do flyers, so you can flyer in the locality to let them know that you are now providing electricity for the community. We do get asked often, you know, what sort of timeline are we looking at on that? Well, the very quickest I think we can do it was from an inquiry from you to actually having an operational charge point. you know, taking into account surveys, if we were using on building supply, I think we'd be looking at about 6 weeks. And I think that's what we could have done at West Point House and Walney, 6 weeks without COVID. But that's pretty much one. If I'm honest with you, if we're looking at a connection from Electricity Northwest, and if there are problems with ownership and other local problems, we're probably looking to up to 6 months really in the current project. But if we get through all that, then you get to do this. And this is where the photographer tells you to point very pointedly at this new charge point. Now, on the left here, we have Will of Charge My Street, who is doing some good pointing there, but I can think we can see who's the professional pointer in this particular photo. Yes, the Deputy Mayor of Barrow showing everybody just how to point properly at charge point. And that's the story of how you can get to this point. Now, I'm very aware that was very quick indeed, but there are frequently asked questions which cover things in much more depth at our website. I'll be around for another hour to answer any of the questions, and hopefully I will see you suggesting charge points to come and host through our website. Thank you.